As Buddy mentioned, my name is Jennifer Aaker, and I wanted to talk a little bit about a new body of research that I'm so excited about. It's not yet published, so you're getting literally the first sort of sneak peek into this talk. A lot of my work is focused around what creates happiness in life and what creates meaning in life and when and why we get it wrong. My mom has been a volunteer at hospice. So as long as I can remember, I've been grappling with these questions of what people regret in their last days of life, who dies or crosses over with a sense of joy and levity and peace, and who have regrets or wishes in their last days of life. More recently, I became a death doula, so I really started to dive not just into the science of happiness and meaning in life, but also in terms of how do you help individuals cross over? And a lot of that work has really raised this question of what is a beautiful life? We know what a happy life is, at least intuitively. It's one where you pass on and you say, wow, that was fun. Although we also know that the chase for happiness often makes us less happy. We don't know so much about what creates a meaningful life. We do know it's a sense of connection, purpose, a sense of control and autonomy. But exactly how does that come alive in the day-to-day is harder, it's more elusive. The way that I'll define a beautiful life is one that is defined by a sense of awareness, aliveness, and appreciation rather than achievement. It isn't designed and measured by traditional metrics of success, but more around what feels true to you, what lights you up and animates your spirit. It's bespoke and dynamic, and in this very moment, you can decide what it is. This research was started off with me asking some friends, what is a recent beautiful moment? And I'd like you to all to start this talk off with closing your eyes and just reflecting on what was a recent beautiful moment. Okay, you can open your eyes. Keep that image in your mind. And I find that 80% of the time when I ask that question, people know exactly what moment comes to mind. As I mentioned, a lot of this work around what creates a beautiful moment, not an object, but a moment, and a beautiful life was inspired by my mom. When she would share stories at the dinner table about what people did regret in their last days of life, they often fell into sort of four themes. One is authenticity, when people often mentioned, I wish I was more true to myself. Didn't listen as much to what society said. I wish I had taken more risks and more action instead of just sort of letting things glide. I wish I laughed more. I wish I sort of allowed for happiness, not chased happiness. And love. I wish I had the chance to say I love you one more time, which is so focused on that feeling of feeling valued and respected and connected, and when you make others feel that way. And I think it lines up so beautifully with the Rotarian set of values. What is the truth? Is it fair to all? What builds that goodwill and makes people laugh together? And will it be beneficial to create contexts of shared prosperity, which is the basis of love? So what I wanted to do is take you through a little quick journey of behavioral research. And then what I'll do is I'll end with a digital care package that I'll send to Buddy. And I invite you to share any questions with me on email if you have them. By the way, all of the classes that are baked into this next 10 or so minutes are all open for you. And I will share those as well. So if you want to dive into any of this work, you can. All right, number one is authenticity. It is often hard to sort of be authentic, but you know what it means to feel authentic in the moment. What we find in our research is that when individuals feel authentic, it's often because they know their story. They know their signature stories that have defined their life. And in fact, their story of their life as it unfolds is quite natural and known, so they can feel authentic in the moment. One of our favorite guests was 5 years ago, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, who came into our course with a set of 10 signature stories, just like little titles associated with these stories, gave them to our students and said, which ones do you want me to share? And so the students that first year said, I want to hear about the negotiating with the Russian foreign minister. So she started and she said, well, it was in early days of my Secretary of Statehood, and I was negotiating with the Russian foreign minister, found out that they had bugged the U.S. State Department, which is a serious breach in international diplomacy. So she didn't know what to do. She thought about it. And she knew how she wanted to walk into the room. And she decided to put on a giant bug pin. It was so ginormous. It was 4 inches big. And she said how the Russian foreign minister couldn't help but smile. And all of the tension in the room eased, and he started interacting with her as if she was Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. But more Madeleine than Secretary of State. There was a humanness about her, an authenticity that was true to her, that was disarming and made the conversation so much more effective. So stating the truth, but with a little bit of levity, allows you to tap into that sense of authenticity. What we make our students do, and I encourage you to do this afterwards or ask your kids, grandkids, parents, friends to do it, is just take 2 minutes and write down all of the 6-word stories you can think about your life. So I'll share a few of the recent ones our students wrote. Not quite, aspiring to be quite. Tonight he packs, tomorrow I pine. Married the wrong guy, fixed it. Getting old, ringtones piss me off. There. Am I right? So what you do is you write down these 6-word stories, and you could start childhood to now. You could think before Rotary and after, or you could think of anything. One tip is to write down stories that have an arc, a transformation, because it proves out how you've changed. And then go over all of the stories that you wrote down and look at the common themes that define each of them. For example, when I do this exercise, I find that unconventionality or a sense of spirituality or belief are common values or themes that permeate most of the 10 6-word stories. And so that allows you to tap into what is beautiful and true to you. And once you know that, then walking into a room authentically becomes so much easier. Number 2 is boldness. This idea of it's not about being fearless. It's about the openness to change. It's about the openness to take risks. And one tool that we find that is that makes boldness more actionable, easier to act on, is really having a sense of what are your guiding principles and what is your legacy. But as Buddy mentioned, I have been privileged enough to work with a set of leaders over the last 10, 15 years, one of which is Stefan. And we work on lots of different things like Eat, Learn, Play, his family foundation with Aisha, with his companies, with his team, etc., all in the service of leadership. And the idea of understanding what is your legacy, how do you want those stories to unfold, allows you to take these bigger risks. One thing that he finds to be true is he doesn't want that sense of legacy to be static. He wants it to be ever changing, but his common theme words that are aligned across stories is he's always unapologetically himself, inspired by faith and belief, a sense of constant gratitude, uplifting others and having impact always, and having a sense of joy. And for those of you going on Monday to the game, you'll likely see that sense of joy. And one of the things you do as you continue on your path of boldness is understanding what we call your guiding principles and its approach to decision making, to know how many of your unique guiding principle boxes really fall into these categories. How are you doing? These are my 5 guiding principles based on a lot of our behavioral research. So each of these 5 principles comes from a body of work that we've done. One guiding principle for me is it's a hell yes or no. So for example, even Buddy, I think Buddy asked me to do this talk, I don't know, 2 years ago. And at the time, I just couldn't imagine this being a fun hell yes and no. I was juggling way too many things at the time. And Buddy had the patience and action tendency to ask once every 6 months until finally I could say, yes, it's a hell yes. And so that decision-making criterion of knowing, is it a hell yes, has so much impact on subsequent decision-making and how you live your life. A second is, how much do I feel I am doing what I was put on this planet to do? I'm keeping all parts of me attended to, a good mom, a good partner, a good academic, excelling at work and service to others. I rate myself on how much I feel like I'm making a difference in the day-to-day. And do I have room for beauty and calm and spontaneity? So this is an example of how some of my leaders like Stefan, they'll just do these quarterly measurements to make sure that they're sort of well attuned on a 5-point scale. How are they doing on each of those? So know your guiding principles, check in with them on a pulse check, and that allows you to act with greater boldness and clarity. The third element of a beautiful life is this idea of levity and humor. What's really important, and we have a whole body of work on this, and I'll again share it with Buddy, is that this is not about being funny. This is about having a sense of humor, being generous with laughter. One thing I loved about the intro today was so much laughter was in this room. Also, y'all get up really early in the morning, so you get double points. And so one thing we find is that when people understand their own authentic sense of humor, all of a sudden they start living life on the precipice of a smile, looking to be delighted rather than disappointed. They become more generous with their laughter, and even are more forgiving when humor goes awry. So I'm going to have you all think to yourself, what is my authentic humor style? And you might have 2. You might shift as you go into different contexts, or even all 3 or 4. But Naomi Bagdonis and I have found that over the last 10 years, when we've asked millions of people these simple questions that are in our Humor Seriously quiz. So if you want data to tell you what you are, just go on to humorseriously.com, and there's a 2-minute quiz that you can take, and then you'll get a PDF of what you are. But in this moment, I'd like you to think, what is your authentic humor style? So the first style is stand-up. They are bold, irreverent, they're natural entertainers. They come alive in front of a crowd, unafraid to ruffle feathers. So they'd be really good at a roast. And there's some downsides too. So they often tease as a sign of affection, but sometimes people might not know that's true, and so might inadvertently get alienated or offended. And our poor stand-ups are like, wait, what happened? That was just humor, just levity. Sweethearts are warm, inclusive, understated. They would never want to be thought of as funny, but they are. If you see how they use humor, they use it in a very PG-13 way. A lot of dad jokes sometimes fall here. They lighten the mood. They're unafraid to be a little cheesy. And then there's snipers. They are dry, edgy, sarcastic. They have this deadpan delivery. Laughter is earned. It's hard to make them laugh, but when you do, you feel great. They're unafraid to cross a line to get a laugh. And sometimes their humor just shows up with like 2 people next to them. They don't need this big stage. Just 2 people listening or hearing, or even just themselves. That's fine. And then there's Magnus, and they walk into a room and they light it up. They're uplifting and expressive and charismatic. They are very generous with their laughter. You might say they're a little too silly. Maybe they overextend their laughter. So much about being competent is knowing when humor is needed and what type. So all of these styles have benefits. Stand-ups and magnets tend to be more extroverted. Sweethearts and snipers tend to be more introverted. All of them have pros. So what I want you all to think is pop into the chat or just know for yourself, write down a little piece of paper, what style are you? So, and if you're two styles, you can write them both down. And if you want data on what style you are, then please do go ahead on Humor Seriously, and then we'll give you data. Now, the reason this is so important is because once you start reframing this is not about being funny. This is about how you make others feel. This is about tapping into your own humor style and understanding that everyone's humor style is different. I actually would make my kids take the humor style quiz once a year because I remember I have twins, 22-year-old boys and a little girl. And I remember when one of our twins was about 14, 13, he had a lot of serial killer jokes, which as a mom is concerning. And then I made him take the quiz and I found out he is a sniper sweetheart. And that made me feel a little bit better about, his tendency towards serial killer jokes. And sure enough, his humor style evolved. But that idea of understanding that everyone has different styles, and I might be more of a magnet sweetheart, he might be more of a sweetheart sniper. But once you understand each other, it's much easier to be generous with your laughter, and it completely changes the dinner conversation. So navigate your life on the precipice of a smile. This changes the way you look at the world and how the world interacts back. And last is love. People wish I had the chance to say, I love you one more time. And the reason this becomes such a visceral and important component of what is a beautiful life is that who you love and how you love is such a determinant of your uniqueness. It also determines metrics of your own success. So for example, when I found out from my mom in these stories around her hospice visits that people often regretted not being able to say, I love you one more time, I told my boyfriend at the time, now husband, Andy, we just need to sign off with love. Just don't even say goodbye. Just say love or L. And he's like, I'm not going to say L or love every time I text you or email you or call you. And I'm like, oh yeah, you will. Because A, by definition, we will never have a regret because the last words out of our mouth will be love. And number two, we will save so much time in our life because love is so much faster than goodbye. Love is monosyllabic. You will save a lot of time in life. So now he always signs off with love. That idea of expressing and feeling love in a moment in a life that can often be quite hard creates the cushion and the memories of something greater than yourself. We often say that people want to be valued members of a winning team on an inspired mission. And you need every single one of those words to come alive when you're feeling or creating cultures of love. People need to feel valued. They need to feel like they're part of a team. They need to feel like you're winning, or at least you know what winning is, what is forward movement. And you need to feel connected to an inspired mission. Another one of the many reasons why Rotary International is such a culture of love. So I wanted to end here with another ask for you to close your eyes for a few seconds. As you close your eyes, I'd like you to think of someone who has loved you deeply. Imagine them standing in front of you. Take a deep breath in for 5 holds and hold at the top for 5 before you exhale. As you're breathing, imagine the way they look at you, their eyes, and smile. And notice how you feel right now. Imagine in their presence, you feel known and unconditionally loved. As you exhale, I'd like you to open your eyes, and I'd like you to think of these 4 components of a beautiful life and ask yourself, what do they mean for you? To know your story anchored on truth, to act boldly, aligned with your guiding principles and creating fairness for all involved, to live on the precipice of a smile, to build goodwill and a better friendships. And lastly, make others feel valued, to create benefit and shared prosperity for all. Thank you so much for your time, and I have been honored to be with you here this morning. If you have any questions at all, please do email me. My email is right here, and I will share with Betty and Jim a set of links if you want to dive deeper or answer any questions. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.